Hello, Jasper.
Hey, David.
It's great to see you, man.
You too, bro. You too. You're really shining. I can feel the prana, the chi, the love coming off you.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, and you've been meditating a lot, and you got some stuff to talk about in kind of staking your claim to decide to keep our consciousness there with the sensory present moment as it is, as opposed to our thoughts about that or thoughts about something else in a different zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of what I'm doing on my YouTube channel, The True Mystic, is kind of philosophical. It's sort of I enjoy it, and I enjoy sort of unpacking the Garden of Eden and the tarot and that kind of thing. But, it's still mental stuff ultimately. And so it was particularly when we had a conversation over a week or so ago, and you came back with a really nice soundbite. You said something like mansplaining the magic. Is that what you said?
I think it was mansplaining the miracle.
The mansplaining the miracle. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's what we do though.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
all spiritual philosophy, all spiritual teaching, the whole all of it,
Hmm.
all yeah, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, the whole thing. Anything which isn't just direct experience, and maybe like Lao Tzu said, a little bit of pointing in kind of saying, he who knows does not speak, he who speaks does not know, and then like, he obviously, amongst Taoist scholars, he's raised some titters because he says that, and then he goes on to say, 80 more kind of verses, after that, mansplaining what he just said.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
But in a much softer way than the normal Western mind would go for it.
it's true. Exactly. And and we're just having a laugh here. That's like which is what It's a very I think it's a very masculine thing to sort of to be a little bit irreverent, but but of course we're doing it in a in a kind way. Anyway, so the idea was to rather than, as has been my process pretty much, I think, in the past, which was lots of meditation and lots of presence, and for many years, it's been about establishing myself in the impersonal sensory experience. Still out of that, realizations come. It's a bit like somehow, one consciously sort of realizes something that maybe one's realized before, but you kind of get it at a deeper level. And
Hmm.
if you sort of, and if your mind sort of has like a mystical kind of side to it, instantly, the RAM kind of kicks in and it's like, oh, wow, yeah, cool. Now I understand what Buddha was talking about when he said blah, 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 and you kind of, make a bit of a big deal of it. And
Well,
so,
it feels like a big deal. It feel those moments are fantastic, aren't they?
yeah, they are. But, it's like, it's a bit like, I don't, I'm sure you've heard this, David, because you're also a very experienced quote spiritual practitioner, you know but there's something that we learn quite early on, from the really good teachers, and that's when you're meditating and you get phenomena coming up, just ignore it, right? And of course, we can explore it, if we want to. We can explore the lights and the colors and the sounds and everything else, but if we're really intent on just relaxing back into absolutely no thing, and exploring that and being that, then as the all the great teachers says, look, just let it all go, and
Right.
so yeah, and so that's kind of what I really decided to do, and it was uh, more than I've ever done before, because there has always been this the allure, of because I'm a songwriter and like a kind of, have a sort of poetic disposition, you know, and creative. And so when you kind of realize something, yeah, you want to kind of weave something creative out of it. You know, it's a nice, enjoyable process, isn't it?
It is, and also to share it with others.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so anyway, long preamble. I hope you're still with us, listeners. You know, yeah, you know that exploring impersonal sensory perception. You know, it just exploring this and enjoying this, and you know, and I've said this so many times before, but it's our basic state. It's the baby state. You know, before we learn language, and we start to, you know, like really just get to the point where we kind of just make an assumption, you know, that we're living in the real world, you know, and the real world is out there somewhere. And we live on a, you know, like a spherical earth, you know, which is kind of, you know, orbiting the sun, and all of these assumptions, you know, these silly assumptions that we make. And we just, you know, take them for granted. Um, and meanwhile, you know, because that's not actually how it is, everything is really just as it is right now. The more we live in that so-called real world, you know, the more we're kind of like coasting along with a little kind of, you know, well, according to whoever we are, but, you know, there's always going to be a bit of a background anxiety with that, you know,
Mhm.
because our subconscious, like our baby mind, if you like, which is hardwired into the, you know, just the formlessness of this present moment, um, you know, it wants to be here. It wants to have the gift of the light which is coming into the eyes right now, not the reflected light of old visual thoughts. You know, it wants to have the actual sounds coming into the ears and blessing the nerves and the cells right now, rather than having to just, you know, listen to these old rehashed mental sounds that we've just heard so many damn times before, you know. And
Oh, that's so brilliant. Brilliantly put, man. Whoa. Yeah.
it makes sense, right? You know, it's like this is what we do to ourselves. It's like we're just. It's like if we were, you know, the owners of a pet or something like that, we'd be really cruel. We'd be really horrible, and we think that we'd be really nice. You know, we're keeping our pet in a really nice cage, you know, and we're feeding it the recommended, you know, what the government is telling us is the good food for it, you know, and we're giving it all these nice supplements, you know, and things like that. But it's not what it wants, you know. It wants to be free. Our own being wants to be free, and not just our own formless being, but our nature, what we could call our human nature, whatever that is, you know, the part of us which produces our emotions, our anger, our joy, our happiness, our resentment, our, you know, all of that stuff, you know, wants to be free, and it wants us, and by that I mean, you know, the conscious part of us, to see that, to understand that, and to you know, to be a good steward, to manage the you know, the whole show in a really kind and responsible way.
Wow. That I think is the the art and the magic. How do we manage this show and stay in this impersonal sensory world?
Well, that's what's come up for me over the last. When was it that we spoke? Was it like nearly 2 weeks ago or a
Yeah.
week and a half?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, I've been lucky enough that, you know, not only do I meditate a lot anyway, but I'm also um, I teach meditation as well, and it's been really beneficial because my students are a sort of like a mix of experienced meditators who kind of come because it's like, you know, where I teach, it's like it's provided as a free service, you know, and so it's a really nice. It's here in I'm in Thailand now, and it's, you know, it's really hot. It's hot season, and, you know, so it's nice to come into this sort of like nice, cool, air conditioned space, you know. But really, it's meant for the students of this yoga center. You know, there are some yoga students. There are some people who are on like what's called a sadhana course. They're learning spiritual philosophy, and, you know, and yeah, I got called in because I'm, you know, experienced meditator to teach the meditation, and it's really great. And I'm just seeing how not only the newbies who've never meditated before are just taking to it like ducks to water, when we're not giving them too much philosophy, when we're just bringing them into the sensory experience, but also seeing how more established meditators who haven't really been aware of the quality of the physical sensation of their own bodies. But much more than that, it's also that, and we can focus, until, you know, forever, we can focus in the wrong parts of the body, let's say, not even the wrong parts of the body, we can focus on the heart, let's say, and there's going to be still unwanted thoughts coming. And the reason for that, and I knew this before, but since I've really been, letting go of all the downloads that have been coming and just going, okay, right, just stay with this beautiful experience. I've just really got it that the reason why I've always been drawn to focus myself in my core, and in the Dantian, in the hara, which is in, below the navel, right, in between the hips. It's not just that this is the physical center of gravity of the body. That's true. But even like when you unpack it a little bit more, it's really cool. It's the fact that our internal organs are the generators of our emotions, right? That's just, the ancients knew this, and when our awareness is focusing higher than the core, it's like we're uptight. There is a tension, there is a tightness there, because basically we have a whole body from head to feet, front to back, side to side, and every part of the body is important. And somehow, when awareness is consciously centered in the Dantian, it's kind of like everything just finds its place, that somehow the organs are just allowed to relax. They're really allowed to relax. But when we're focused in the solar plexus or the chest or in the head, we're not centered. It's kind of like we're being pulled a little bit upwards. We're not. You could say that the Dantian is the present, and anything above it we could say is the future. We're being kind of pulled into the future somehow. And so, yeah, it's like because our internal organs are producing our emotions, when we are not focused in the center, whatever emotion comes up, it's more likely to kind of to take on a momentum of its own. And if it's anger, which comes from the liver, eventually, there's going to be a part of us that's saying, "Oh God, I'm fed up with feeling angry, or we start to feel anxious or something like that," and that's coming from the stomach. And it's well known in Chinese medicine that the liver and the spleen, or the stomach, are always duking it out. That's like this kind of thing between anger and worry. And with the other emotions too, sadness. I can experience personally a lot of sadness, and that comes from the lungs. It's this thing of like, oh God, I'm just, it's like a sadness of like, why do I have to get so pissed off about things? It's just not worth it, and you just get really sad. And it's kind of not me. It's just it's an indication from my own subconscious that I'm not managing the show. I'm not doing my job, as awareness. I'm really, not just as awareness, but as, let's say, as the individualized point of awareness in the little conscious mind of Jasper, the Atman, which is here. And and kind of realizing in Jasper's own conscious understanding, it's not just about me being awareness, but there's a condition to that awareness, and it's like it's necessary for me to ground myself and focus myself gently in my center.
So if you were feeling or noticing a sadness that you were saying is associated with the lungs and an imbalance in maybe where the attention is being focused, or a mismanagement of the whole system, what would you would then just kind of notice, okay, I've got that sadness, kind of let it go and go back to the dantian, and it would kind of find its own balance and sort itself out?
Yeah, pretty much like that. I mean, what I would do is if I notice that, and it hasn't really happened much lately, but you know, if I did notice, like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I've sort of had, you know, I've traveled a lot in the tropics, and you know, I sort of had my issues in my digestive system, and I've noticed that, you know, generally during the day, when I'm really conscious during the day, I feel good. But sometimes I wake up in the morning and I just really feel like crap, you know. And it's sort of it can take a while to, you know, of consciously really being present to you know, to kind of to let go of that crap feeling. And one of the things I do is just take some really conscious and deeper and gentle kind of baby breaths into my core. So I don't take like really big, you know, go, you know, really huge, great breaths so that the rib cage and the chest is opening. I let the rib cage and the chest be not move at all, and I just breathe through the nose gently, but you know, more deeply into the core. So it's like I can feel the belly opening, but it's also like I feel the hips and the lower back opening as well. And as this happens, yeah, you know, whatever kind of cruddy feeling, emotional feeling is going on, as I'm consciously focusing in the core, it's like everything seems to kind of find its place. And you know, in Taoist philosophy, they speak about by you know they speak about the three dantians, the upper dantian in the head, middle dantian in the chest, and the lower dantian in the below the navel. And they talk about it like being kind of like a waterfall effect. That all in a way, all you have to do is focus in the lower dantian, and you know, whatever is going on in the upper and the middle dantian, and also in between as well, is going to focus down. It's already fall down like a waterfall into the lower dantian. Um, and so when you're in the lower dantian, it's kind of like it's an emotionless place. I mean, you can feel physical pain there, but there's no emotion there, which is, you know, in a way, I think that's one of the, you know, the aha things for the mind is like, wow, this is lower than emotion, you know. And to the extent that I can really keep my awareness here and not try to change anything, let's say up here in the upper part of the body,
Mm-hmm.
and I can relentlessly stay, again, coming back to this thing of not trying to change anything, not trying to mansplain, not trying to do anything at all, but just staying with the sensory awareness, which most importantly is, in my own feely experience, is centered in the dantian. Then eventually everything starts to find its place.
Yeah, I see two things that I haven't sorted out in my own kind of meditative experience. The the sensory that can be going on from the, usually my eyes are closed, but I get a lot from sound, skin, internal body things, and then also keeping my attention on the dantian. So if I'm being present with the sensory experience, I'm not in the dantian
You
sometimes.
are. Oh yeah, sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like I hear something, so I'm actually kind of listening to that, and my I don't feel the, what would I say? Hearing it might be a more subtle example. Maybe just the sensation on my skin, those kinds of things, or a crick in my bones somewhere. So I feel that sensory input. And so present with the impersonal sensory stuff, while at the same time being present in the dantian.
Exactly. So that's
But
the
yeah.
first, that would be the first consideration, let's say, at the beginning of the meditation,
Mm-hmm.
is to take some time to, to really take some conscious, deeper and fuller breaths into the hips, into the lower back, into the lower belly, and to, really have a sense that you're feeling it from where it is. You're not thinking down from your head.
Right.
You're not observing it from somewhere up here, You're
Mm-hmm.
actually feeling it directly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and let's say, when you're really, really focusing on that, of course, also, if there's some, tangible sounds going on, you'll be aware of them. But you're mostly focusing in the dantian. And then after some time, it might be like, okay, right, there's somehow there's almost like the subconscious has kind of reached the point now where it's been penetrated enough in the dantian, and it likes it, because I can feel it. It's really nice, That means my body likes it. Where it's kind of it's open now, And so then what I maybe would do then is might become a little bit more aware of, the breath in the nose, in and out, and really feel as if the nasal passages are really opening up, you know. Um, and then after some time, I'd really become aware of the feeling in my hands, which is the easiest place really in the body to feel our prana, our chi. There's like a very subtle pins and needles right now, viewers, listeners. If you want to feel into your hands right now, um, even if you've been meditating a really long time, it's never more than a very, very subtle kind of tingly feeling. It's just the more you are aware of it, the more you appreciate it. The more you don't let it go away. You're kind of aware of it all the time. And so they would be my at the moment. I think that things change all the time because you can never place conditions on the subconscious, which is feminine. As soon as you think, right, I've got it, I've cracked it, then you need to change it a bit, maybe. But right now, that's maybe what I do, and
Mm-hmm.
that really that's like somehow that's like taking care of awareness in the core, in the head, and in the extremities, right? And maybe from then I might really like choose to like, okay, really to have a sense that the passages of my ears are really, really opening up. It's like I'm consciously having the intention that my ear passages are really, really opening up. And by that point, because I've been meditating for a long time, by focusing on those 3 points already, the whole of my body is already like a formless open glow. It's completely formless, it's completely open. And by also consciously factoring in the sounds, it's like there's just a sense that those sounds are completely inner penetrating the feeling of my body. I can't really put
Mm-hmm.
it better than that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful descriptions. Very nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really, I think it ends here in terms of like what what I'm what we're talking about, which is being in the impersonal sensory experience, the impersonal presence. It's like I can point you, the viewers, the listeners, towards it, and if you go, oh, cool, I'd like to give it a go, you can you can give it a go. And I have to tell you that it's something that you have to practice a lot, because thoughts will come. So right now we're aware of any ambient we could say actual sounds, but when we're meditating, we're also aware of the mental sounds, the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we're also, when our eyes are closed, we're aware of the what I call the blank screen of the vision. But we might also be aware of, the visual kind of thoughts. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what I always endeavor to do is to, whenever I notice that thoughts are coming in, whether they're visual or audio, is to that's the reminder instantly to kind of come back to the actual um, sounds. And when my eyes are closed, there's nothing to see, but there is the blank screen of the vision, and also there is the impersonal sensation of the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So all I can tell you is that in doing this, what can I say? Nothing's coming, and which is good, because there's really
Mm-hmm.
nothing to say, except it's not just a neutral experience.
Right.
It's a pleasurable experience. You know, um, there's less anxiety, there's less emotional stuff. I think right now, the human consciousness, it seems like we're going through like big changes and all of that. And I could even say, human consciousness, that's just a thought in itself. I don't even have to go there. But, let's just say, for the sake of, this podcast, this discussion, I think anybody who's interested in humanity and is aware of what's going on in the world, we can see some big, in the external sense, we can see some big shifts are happening. And, to some extent, we're all part of that. We're all caught up in that. And it is an impersonal thing. So even though, maybe we've kind of got our own shit under our belts and, and everything's good, we're still all part of the human psyche, the human connection, and we're going to be feeling, the impersonal, unconscious waves and tsunamis and earthquakes and, volcanoes and everything else that, all the bubblings up from the swamp of the human unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but somehow the more we invest in this impersonal presence,
Mm-hmm.
we feel it, but it's like it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't it doesn't distract us anymore. It doesn't take us with it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That kind of imperturbability. I find that a real sign that something's going right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stability there.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Just a subtlety, but it keeps running through my mind. And there's these moments I have where I'm being present, and sometimes it's the birds. I've got birds that will make noise outside my place, and I notice the difference between actually the raw sound that I experience, and then immediately after that, very often, is like a thought of the bird or a bird. A picture in my mind flashes, or a thought flashes of a bird, like where it is, it's in a tree or on the power line out there, or what type of bird it is, because I recognize the call. And so that it happens in a microsecond of raw sound to picture in my mind of that thing. And the the difference between those two things is quite striking, actually. The raw, unprocessed experience, and then like the story of what I think it is. It's a very, if I'm paying attention, I don't seem to be able to avoid that little story from beginning. I can bring myself back, but it sort of starts to run automatically. Oh, that's a bird over there. It's a minor bird, or it's a dove, or it's a pigeon, or it's a Pichiloo. There's a little bird here called a Pichiloo. Pichiloo. I think it's a perfect Thai name because their sound
Yeah.
is something like Pichiloo. And I'm like, oh, it's that. And so I watch the birds out my window, so I've identified these different birds, their sounds, but it's been instructive. These birds have to just that notice that moment of a shift between just what's happening, the sound, and then if I was a baby, that's what I would hear, just that sound. I wouldn't have a name for the bird. I wouldn't have a picture for the bird. I wouldn't have any of that. That story wouldn't occur. But those little things, as I'm trying to maintain my presence throughout the day, little moments like that are constantly pulling me into thought and mind and like that. And it's interesting to watch, but I really have to pay attention to see it happen.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a testimony to the awareness that you've cultivated in yourself, that you're able to observe the subtlety of how thinking about what you've just enjoyed as a pure sensory experience makes you feel. And so how would I'm interested because I know for me, it's like I can mansplain, I can give you a good mansplanation about, oh yes, it's because of this, but
Right.
it's like, that's for me, but like for you, I mean, how does it make you feel?
Well, that's why I commented on your explanation earlier when you were talking about your own experience. And what I picked up from that was this, a real, how to say it, the present state is real, it's fresh, it's connected, it's life in a sense. It's life as it is occurring like that. And then when it flips into the thought, suddenly it's just not that life anymore. It's like a shadow, a reflection built on like an old story that's just, so it's not even a reflection because it's a reflection through old stories, through old thoughts, through old memories, through old words. So it's the contrast between the two states is actually quite dramatic.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I'm not sure how to mansplain it better than that, but if I am paying attention like that, I can feel like you have to, and maybe it'd be like being outside in a garden and then stepping into a shed. I mean, something like that. One, you're just out in the garden and everything's there. And then you step into a little shed and that's the world. It's this well-known, four-sided, organized space with a
Yeah.
door. With a door.
Yeah, I
Something
think
like
that's a
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good way to explain it. Or watching it on like a really excellent David Attenborough BBC documentary or something like that. It just doesn't have the immediacy.
Right.
It's pleasurable, isn't it? When you have, let's say, using that example, it's like it's real art, to watch a good documentary which is really well shot and well presented. Um, but it doesn't have the same joy. It doesn't have the same quality as the immediate experience. And when we can start to, yes, to be aware of that, I'm sure now that you've explained it so well, I'm sure that, in an ongoing way, you'll find it easier to, to, to be present as that thought starts to arise. And then, it's a bit like, we were talking some time back about the Garden of Eden, with the snake being like a wave of possibility, in the quantum physics idea. I still really like this, my kind of, whether that's what the ancients actually meant or not, I don't know, but it's like, I think it works for me,
Mm-hmm.
that Adam is conscious awareness and Eve is like our unconscious, and they've got to be together, otherwise the unconscious is going to be, is going to drift off a little bit, and it's going to be tempted by the snake, and the snake is like a wave of possibility. So yeah, we're in this beautiful natural situation, and the bitchy Lou, does her little song, and we hear her, and the mind comes in, and that's a wave, the mind is sort of coming in, and previously, awareness engaged with that wave, and it became a particle, and all of a sudden we're in the shed, or we're watching the David Attenborough documentary, and yeah, and if we're fast enough, we're able to notice a difference between the two. Yeah, but maybe through understanding this, and I hope you're still with us, viewers and listeners, because this is really rarefied stuff that we're talking about here. To many people, I'm sure this is kind of, it's not the sort of thing that you're going to talk about down the pub, and but this is really important stuff, if we're going to understand the the responsibility that we have, and how, as awareness, as individualized, you'd say, points of awareness, and how we are tested, and the nature in which we are tested, and how we can, let's say, head off the test through understanding it a little bit more, and having been pulled in so many times, so eventually we recognize it. So I think, would that be a fair, a fair mansplanation, that in a way it's kind of like what you're feeling is like is a wave you're feeling, and through starting to become more, oh yeah, that's a bitchy Lou, then it's already, in naming it, it's already become a particle, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
has.
yeah, yeah.
It's already become a particle.
And
Yeah.
we've already fallen. We've already fallen out of the Garden of Ether, with the Garden of Eden, which is the Garden of Ether, which is the undifferentiated, baby state that we're all in right now. Yeah.
And maybe we can just let that particle appear and then let it go. Just
Yeah.
here, let it go, and we come right back. Just don't hang on to it and follow it around, and because I think they are going to appear, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's
Oh,
just
totally.
it's just noticing that how they're, in a sense, completely dissimilar states. They're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I like that. The Garden of Eden analogy, because it's like, well, this place where everything is kind of given to you, and you're naked, and you don't have to do anything at all. And all of a sudden you've been kicked out, you've fallen, and everything's is separate. And yeah, it's like, that's just a mental kind of idea, but and it's pretty like, it's from the mind perspective, that's a big contrast between the two.
Yeah.
But the more we start to appreciate the quality of conscious baby state impersonal presence, as you said, you actually start to notice, it's not like you're being, it's not like you're being whacked by a baseball bat or anything like that, but you notice that there's a difference,
Mm-hmm.
and you eventually you realize, wow, it's kind of not so nice, it's not
Yeah.
it's not so nice,
It's
yeah,
not so nice. It's not so
yeah,
nice, and it's not so safe.
yeah,
That,
exactly.
that expulsion from the Garden of Eden. I mean, those images. Maybe it was a children's Bible or something that we had. Is like, I have this picture of Adam and Eve, kind of like this, fleeing, like, I don't know, hail and brimstone or something are coming down, but it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's not that bad, but it's leading in that direction.
yeah,
You feel, yeah, you're not in the presence anymore. So where are you?
exactly. It's like, it really does start like that. It starts with, just the giving oneself the luxury to kind of, in a way, I'm kind of like, I'm being a little bit creative here, but in a way, it's almost like you're saying, life, just put yourself on hold for a while, will you? I just want to, like, kind of, just for my own kind of gratification, that was a really nice experience that I just had. So just everybody, just hold, just freeze, just hold that position. And I'm really gonna enjoy thinking about it now,
It's
and
so much like that.
and when we do that, it's like, yeah, it's kind of really nice, and in a way, it's kind of like innocent, but it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Into as soon as we start to do that, it's like, well, we're gonna, oh, well, that was, there's a part of us where, again, we've lost our dantian, we're already up in the head somewhere, and so that brings tension into the internal organs, and so automatically, their emotional, possibilities start, coming into play. So maybe the, incipient kind of like frustration might come in, or sadness, or anxiety, or fear, or, whatever else.
Right.
Just starts in a really, really small way, which is totally manageable at that point, because we're too busy thinking about the bitchy loo, But like, unless we bring ourselves back, those, and we maintain sensory awareness too high in the body, we're uptight. Yeah, then we've fallen.
And I find when I come back to the awareness, I kind of come back to the awareness with some demands. Like I was just being entertained by that thought. Okay, now I'm back. So, do something. There's something like that. I mean, I don't know if I don't know how to describe it, but there is coming back then from that, telling, like what you said, reality just, hold tight for a minute. I'm going to indulge myself in this cool little thought and just pat myself on the back while I just run it through. And now, okay, I'm ready to come back to reality. But now I seem to come back with sort of a demand, like, okay, what I just did was pretty cool. What do you got now?
Right.
Or give me something else to play with,
Right.
or something.
Right. What do you mean? Like, can you? Where does that demand come from? Does it come from you, or does that come from life? Would you say?
No, it came from me. It came from
Uh,
that imbalance that got initiated
ah,
in stepping out and running that little subroutine. There's like a whirlpool little torque or something on my. So when I come back in, I have to kind of really take an extra step maybe and realize I'm coming in with some little torque or
yeah.
some little thing that's going on, and I've got to let that go.
Exactly. That's a subconscious, a little kind of like a voodoo world, like a little kind of zombie world, that a Frankenstein world that we've created. It's literally kind of because we focused on it for some time, and
Mm-hmm.
awareness is all. We've literally kind of, we're kind of like he's like a mad scientist. We've kind of like a magician or something. We've conjured up some little jinns or something inside of us, and it's kind of they're sort of they're like, well, as you say, so yeah, so what have you got then? What have you got? It's like they want more of our attention.
Mm-hmm.
They start to become more and more demanding,
Mm-hmm.
and and if we're not able to immediately nip it in the bud and come back to the dantian and open up to the impersonal sensory experience, then then that's when the shit really starts, because we really start getting into this, like the Gollum kind of experience, where he's talking to himself. There's the, you remember that in Lord of the Rings?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's sort of, there's the good guy who sort of, wants to be Mr. Frodo's friend, and then there's the evil guy who's like, well, I've always looked after you. We've got to kill him, And so if, I hope I know what I'm trying to say. I hope I'm making what I'm trying to say like understandable. What I'm saying is, when we feel that spin of what you're talking about, that what have you got for me? that's coming from this kind of little zombie world that we've just created. And we have to, we've got to kill it. And we don't kill it by like, sending love to it, or kind of like, trying to be reasonable to it, or saying, hey, look, I'm really sorry, but I've got to let you go now. We kill it just by completely ignoring it and coming immediately back to the actual sounds and the actual sights and the actual sensations focused in the Dantian. That's what we do. It's like in the Indian tradition, this would be Shiva the Destroyer. It's absolutely kind of like we're not in any way like trying to engage with that in any way. We're not sort of thinking, well, maybe that's like a part of unresolved me from my childhood, because we'll probably know, if we go into it, we'll probably realize, oh wow, I recognize that from my dad not listening to me or something like that. No, if you really want to be free as soon as you can, you basically just, you don't even have to think that you're killing it, but that's what you're doing anyway, whether whether you know it or not. You immediately do your job, as an individualized point of awareness, as an Atman, as an Adam, as a soul that you are, as the SUN of God that you are. You focus awareness in the Dantian, open to the impersonal sounds and the impersonal sights. And when you can hold that space and you can feel the desire of this little zombie world that you've created, you can feel the desire of it to continue living. It's saying, oh, fuck you, like this. You don't go there. You don't go there. You're a man about it, or you're a woman about it, or whatever you are about it. You stay centered. And eventually, when you do that, I really guarantee, if you're not fighting and you're just, you're taking some conscious breaths, slow breaths into the Dantian, maybe you're feeling your hands, you're feeling your nasal passages opening up, through doing nothing more than that. They're nothing more than doing your, basically fulfilling your role as awareness, as an individualized point of awareness. The zombie power, the Frankenstein power, it will, when it's no longer being fed, the spin will just, and it will just fall back into the void, and I don't know, whatever the void does with it, just take it back into itself and recycle it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. And I think I didn't appreciate that aspect of coming back to awareness, where in the past, where there was that issue coming back, and there's that zombie spin thing going on, and just, I think, being conscious of that and just saying, okay, yeah, that's going to go on. There's a little bit of momentum there. Drop it. Never mind. It will, like you said, you take the attention away from it. You fulfill your duty as awareness, and there's nothing more to. There's nothing to feed it. It's been unplugged, and so it's just gone. There's nothing else there. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, and I just think this is what we're talking about here, David, is so practical, and it's so I always used to think, when I started to become aware of the importance of impersonal sensory awareness, it's like, why isn't anybody else talking about this? Why aren't the spiritual teachers talking about it? I mean, who knows? Maybe it just wasn't like ready, for the human psyche to realize this. Maybe we were just in a more mental time when, we were, who knows, that we were understanding things in a different way. But I think that where we're at now, or certainly where I'm at now, as a potentially, I mean, I'm like, really, as I've said before, like really very emotional, potentially very emotional guy. And the way that I like understand that, it's not so much emotional, it's just like, wow, it's really cool, because emotional energy is like planetary energy or stellar energy. And it's like, when you think, oh shit, I'm so sensitive and I'm so emotional. Well, if you start to make that a little bit more impersonal and a bit more macrocosmic, you start to realize, oh my God, this is really awesome. It's like I have, access to so many kind of planetary energies and stellar energies. And it's like, I'm working within myself with a really strong Mars energy, which is like a real motherfucker, at the same time as a very strong moon energy, which is just very gentle and very sensitive, and to the mind, it's like, oh my God, how am I ever going to balance that lot out? It's absolutely impossible. But, as awareness, or as I know I keep saying in this discussion, in a way, it's like an individualized point of awareness, because it's not just awareness. Awareness is just like, in a way, this is different what we're talking about from like pure baby awareness, because the baby is just like seeing everything as it is, but the baby hasn't yet got the potential of thoughts coming in and having to navigate in the world with concepts and things like that. So, the awakened baby state is that, yeah, we maintain the baby state, but at the same time, we've got, all of these, we're also open to and interacting with and in communication with the whole kind of, planetary and stellar system kind of thing going on that the babies don't have. It starts for them maybe when they're about 1.5. You pretty much, when you look at babies, they're kind of like animals. It's like you look at animals, right? And it's almost like they're tied to the earth. They're kind of tied to the earth. And you look at the higher animals, which can get emotional, like dogs, and chimpanzees and elephants. They get jealous, right? So it's almost that they've kind of got some connection with the moon as well, But humans, it's like we're going beyond the moon. We're opening up to the other planets, to the sun, which represents conscious understanding and awareness and the ability to label things and conceptualize things. So we've got a lot of stuff is happening within the human experience, which can really drive us crazy. And for most people who don't know how to manage it, the way they manage it is by just having default coping mechanisms, the phone, Donald Trump, I don't know what, the TikTok, the poke, whatever it is, all of this, stuff that we do until we start to take conscious responsibility for ourselves. And so, like I say, it's not just about being awareness. The kinds of people in my experience who say it's all about just awareness, you look at them and they haven't really got their lives in order fully. They're often maybe not that healthy, and they often have sort of skeletons in their closet and things like this, addictions and things going on. And it's like they're not necessarily like really identified with it, because it's like, okay, I'm just awareness, and it's almost like they're not even particularly embodied, and they're just kind of seeing everything as it is, and nothing's really a big deal. Maybe they're fat and maybe they, or they have difficulty in relationships, but it doesn't really matter. It's just life playing itself out. It's okay. But, there are, you and I know, that doesn't work. There's something in us. There's something in our own experiential intelligence for which that's not good enough, that wants to, not just, it's like you said in the past, you would like more money. You want to help people, you're kind of looking for ways to just be a more awesome human being.
Right.
And to the extent that we become more embodied and more engaged, we start to these kinds of things become more important to us. So
yeah, I think we become, there is something about this point of consciousness in this body right here that is of value and is important, as opposed to just generalized awareness around. It's like this awareness that's here, this unique vortex that is embodied as a human, and I don't think that's to be overlooked or to be poo-pooed. It's outstanding and outrageous and phenomenal that here we are in this body. What's going on with that?
It's extraordinary, and each one of us, I feel, we are universes and somehow sharing a multiverse, and to be living outside of ourselves in the conceptual world. I mean, it really is just the definition of slavery. And I just this morning I was listening to I thought, I'll listen to a podcast, and I was listening to quite an interesting guy, who's like been, sending off to the FBI and the CIA, to open their files on, he's like an anthropologist, he started to realize that the CIA and the FBI were becoming interested in anthropologists and funding their work so that they could kind of take what they were learning to weaponize it, that kind of thing. Anyway, I was listening to it, but I could just feel myself kind of, potentially just being drawn more and more into the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you start to realize that if you, even through having a prolonged interest in that kind of stuff, it's really, if you're really, really honest about it, it's not because of anything out there. It's because of your own unique cosmology within yourself. And it's because you're uptight. It's because you're not like able to maintain awareness in your Dantian, and this guy was a really nice man. Don't get me wrong. You could tell he was a really, really caring and very intelligent man. But to be really focusing and really taking that stuff, really, really seriously, it's just a head trip. It's kind of, it has some value. Of course it does. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, only the value that we give it. And if all of us just stops, kind of like putting our awareness there and brings our awareness back into the Dantian, I mean, my God, what can't we do? It's just extraordinary. When everybody starts to do this, I've noticed in the meditation teaching, when we're all focusing on sensory awareness in our own space, it's better for everybody. Everybody at the end is beaming and just blissed out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an added factor of reality. That I've definitely felt that, and you feel that, and that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great, bro. Well, I know that we have things to do, so yeah, there's been a really great one this time. Mansplaining,
so nice to chat with you, man.
Mansplaining the miracle.
That's right.
And just, sort of hovering on the threshold, but you're not really allowing that wave to become a particle.
I'm sitting here with my legs splayed out, taking up a lot of space while we mansplain.
Awesome, bro. Well, out there in the real world, in the world of right now, with the listeners and the viewers, I hope that you've taken something from this, and really sending you loads of real love from this beautiful place here, and hope to check in with you again.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jasper.